Okay, you're good.
Okay, we'll call the Wellington Board of Education Finance Committee to order on January 4th, 2021. This is a Zoom meeting, and the agenda call to order. Second item is review request for qualifications for owner's project manager for school roof replacement projects and adjournment. That is the only item on the list. And I believe everyone received copies of the brochures regarding the project manager service from Collins International Company and the CSG Construction Solutions Organization and Construction Advocacy Products. They all seem to be pretty good companies. They're well established. They have done a lot of business in Connecticut. And all of us have had an opportunity to go through each one of the brochures, and hopefully Kathleen and you may have some questions in regard to each one of the companies. We also have the fees that they are bidding fee that they're offering up, and they're not all over the park, but the one is rather high and one is a little low. I think one is about 45,000, another one is about 68,000, another one 39,000, not including, you know, other little fees that might be in there. But you may have decided which one you're interested in, but I think before we do that, we should go through each one of them and discuss our position and how we feel about it. And now I don't know who wants to go first. Phil, do you want to say a few words about that?
Yeah, so I went through the RFQ and pulled out the items for evaluation. And I shared this with you, and it wasn't meant to be done ahead of time. It was really, this is meant for talking points. And so rating these companies on technical competence, their capacity and capability to do the work, and their performance record and pricing. And so, as Herb said, all these companies they're capable. As far as what their packets look like, we can go through and talk about each of these. I actually took this rubric for myself and went through each of the items just for organization for myself. I'm not sure if you want to use this to talk about the different groups, or if it's easier just to say, if you are particular to any. I mean, I can give you. I went through and Herb just mentioned the cost. I went through for the reimbursement rates we're at 65%, I think, is on this one. 65.71 is our current reimbursement rate. And so the construction, the CSG group, they all start with C's. Construction Solutions Group, CSG, the cost to Wellington would be about 23,000. The reimbursement would be 44,000. Colliers International, the cost to Wellington would be 15,430. The reimbursement would be 29,570.
Oh,
yes.
Good question.
So
You said you're giving a cost to Wellington, but then you're giving a reimbursement. So is the reimbursement what somebody else pays, and the cost to Wellington what Wellington pays?
Correct. So you when you do a roof project or you do any of these projects, basically what happens is you're required to have the funding in place for the full amount, which is what they've done for the roofs. It's already approved. And so when you hire a project manager for this, they're going to say, hey, the cost is $50,000 total. I'm making that number up. $50,000 total. If your reimbursement rate is 50%, you would get 50% of that $50,000 back. And so when I say actual cost to Wellington, that's factored into what we have in there for the $1 million that's in there for the roofs. So the actual cost of Wellington for the roof project is not $1 million. We think the total cost will be about $1 million, but we'll get 65% back of that million. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you give me those numbers then again?
The roof was, I thought the roof was more than that. I thought the center school was about 1,700,000.
I saw that number in one of the applications, Herb, and it was wrong.
That's wrong?
Yeah,
Okay.
somebody had it in their applications. I think what they did was they just added the numbers together. I looked at that too. But
That
I
was
know
on
that we have-
CSG,
So
Yeah,
it's,
it
or
is.
CGS, I should say.
the cost of both roofs be about $1 million then.
Correct. And
we
that's
did-
before, and it could be a little bit over that. That's before reimbursement. So again, if I'm looking at, what we want to know is, hey, what's the actual, how much is this going to cost Wellington for the service? And so Construction Solution Group was going to cost Wellington about $23,000, and the reimbursement. So if I just want, you want me to tell the cost for Wellington, I can do that.
No, I'm interested in the whole thing because I think of it as the pocket theory.
Yeah.
Or a family theory. If you bring home a certain amount of money and Kristen brings home a certain amount of money, if you pay for a bill and she pays it for another bill, it's still costing your family in total the same. And when I look at this stuff, I say, all right, we have the piece that's costing Wellington directly, but the other piece that's coming from Connecticut, it's still coming out of our other pockets. It's still Connecticut resident money. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we're making decisions. For
sure. Yes, I agree. It's taxpayer money, and that's how they do their bonding. That's what, the Administrative Services does their bonding. So if I look at Construction Solutions Group, their total cost for both of the project manager is $66,975. Their reimbursement would be our reimbursement to Wellington would be $44,009. And the cost to Wellington taxpayers would be $22,966. And they are the most expensive of the three. Collier's, the total cost was $45,000. The reimbursement was $29,570, and the cost to Wellington was $15,430. And then the last one was Construction Advocacy Professionals, CAP, they call themselves. Their total cost was $39,000. The reimbursement was $25,627, and the cost of Wellington was $13,373. So Colliers and CAP are pretty close to each other. CSG is significantly higher. So if you and I'm glad to walk through kind of my thoughts, and I know Don and I talked about this briefly the other day. That's kind of the pricing. If I'm looking at pricing, obviously CAP is the least expensive. They're pretty close to Colliers, but CSG is significantly more, I think. So if you're going to rank them, you're going to rank them a 2, 3, 4 or a 1, 2, 3 for those. As far as performance records, if I'm looking again at this, I took off this cooperation with client because I didn't see anything in the documents that really made me be able to allowed me to rank that. But quality of work, when I look through these packages and I look at professional things, someone puts a bid out or a proposal out, I look for errors. Did they call us Wilmington? Did they, pull something that was wrong? Was it made for us, or was it personalized? So I'm looking at the quality of their package, but I'm also looking at, did they put something from Hall School on the front of their document? Did they put a town seal? I'm looking for things like that. And then the quality of work. If they're used a lot in the state of Connecticut, that their quality of work is good because they're being used, and you know, Department of Policy Management and BAS.
I'm sorry, Phil, you're fading out when you turn.
Sorry,
Your head.
I was looking that way. I got to stop looking that way. I'm gonna look
I can hear
down.
you, that I can't hear you, that I can't.
Sorry. You know, they're all capable. They have experience with similar projects. I will say that CAP looked like they had more experience in Rhode Island, but the
That's
other two.
construction advocacy.
Say that again, Herb.
Construction has service in Rhode Island. Is that what
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And again, this is just what I pulled out of the documents.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, can they all do a project manager for a roof project? I think the answer is yes. I would say this is the one that this next area, capacity and capability to perform work, is kind of where I separated a little bit. They all had timelines. They were all very similar timelines, but the impact of current projects that were under contract, I'll be honest with you, I was a little nervous on one. And the one I was nervous on was CAP. They are currently doing Birch Grove School in Towland. They are the primary project manager, and one of the people listed that would be doing the work for us is their project manager. That project in Towland is supposed to wrap up in the fall of 2021, which means their final push is the setup of when we're doing all of our work. And that made me a little nervous. Do I think they have the capability to do multiple projects? I'm sure they do. But when I looked at the professionals that were there, and who they listed in their backgrounds, you know, it wasn't the same quality as what I saw from Colliers. The last area, that technical competence, they all had reasonable qualification statements. I would say I was pretty impressed with Colliers' statement of interest. Their organizational chart, nobody had a joint venture. They were all had the flow chart of who would be assigned to us. I look for things like, are you an architect or are you an engineer, and what backgrounds you have, and I didn't see that out of CAP. And again, I'm just talking about CAP because they're the cheapest. They might have some experience with the also, you know, the Office of Policy Management where the grant is done. I saw some construction background, but I didn't see architect, and I didn't see engineer. I saw that from the other two, Colliers and CSG. And then the last thing I'll say, they all do have some experience with BAS and building codes. CAP started in 2017. They are new to the game. Colliers and CSG, and again, CSG is big bucks, I think. They have significant experience in this state. Mansfield is using them to build their new school. They are the project manager for that project. So, you know, they all.
Phil, are you talking about CSG at
No.
Mansfield?
Colliers.
Colliers. Okay. Sorry, I was confused there. I thought you were talking about the one.
Yeah,
So
so
Colliers
you know,
is
if I'm
doing
talking
Mansfield?
about, if I'm going to rule somebody out, and I guess that's trying to, I guess where I'm going, I was kind of ruling out construction advocacy professionals. Birch Grove is a big piece for me. The background of the folks for me, not seeing the engineer, not seeing the architect, seeing the Rhode Island experience made me a little nervous. And then just the quality of the package. You know, I saw some things in there that, you know, I see Colliers and CSG being better. The questions I had about Colliers and CSG, and I thought this was interesting. CSG do not include design phase services in their package. but they included construction services, which is like oversight. Whereas Colliers did not include construction services, but included design phase. So
Oh, wait. I thought I picked up, hold on. I thought I
Colliers
picked
has,
up on oversight of design process. I had checked that off for both CSG and Colliers. So I don't know whether I actually saw that or I thought I.
you did, and I'll tell you, I
Okay.
know Colliers has it in there, but they wrote minimal hours. They didn't write like full project on-site oversight. So, you know, this could come from what you can also write these into when you write the RFQ for an architect, you can write those things in for oversight. So you know, for me, I want to make sure the plan setting the roof project up is what we're looking for versus the actual, the construction portion of it. We could pay some hourly services to the architect if we wanted to, that they could have oversight and make sure the application of the roof project is done properly. But for me, the grant setup and completion, that's why for me Collier stood out, because they have the design in their plan.
Well, you've covered a lot of material there, Phil. Yeah,
Sure.
when I look at the three of them, I like the construction advocacy and CSG. I think they would do the job, probably not quite as well probably as Collins International. They seem to have the know-how. They have the planning, design, and the construction part of it, and they're familiar with the trends and things of that kind. And they've done roof replacements previously. This isn't their first one, and they're not new at it. And they have in Connecticut. They have quite a list of schools that they work, and their timeline seems to be laid out pretty good. I don't know if the others had that, but they laid it out pretty well, so that we knew each month what would be happening. And apparently, if we get going on this, they would be able to complete it, most of it anyway, during the summer of 21. They have the staff, and I couldn't figure out how they would handle that. They'd have a project director and maybe a project manager, maybe several people that would be involved. And I would be interested in who would we have contact with, who would we be working with in this area.
Is that for Colliers, Herb?
They have already selected someone who's going to be doing this. I don't know if the others have done it, but I like Collins. I thought they had a good brochure. They're experienced. They've done a lot of work on roofs. They have the know-how in the planning and design and the construction of a roof. So I feel I'm leaning. I know you are, Phil. You're leaning in that direction, and I am too, from what I saw in the brochures.
I'm sorry, Herb. I think I missed it. Which one are you leaning towards?
Colliers
Colliers, yeah.
International.
Okay. Michelle, how did you feel about them?
I agree with that on Colliers. I felt like they had the expertise and the staff, and the Connecticut experience, the Rhode Island experience, and not as much of it made me really nervous about the other one. So I feel pretty comfortable with Colliers.
when I looked through them, I did my own little Excel spreadsheet where I kind of checked what I was trying to compare.
Mhm.
I was concerned about the construction advocacy group. Not so much because they haven't been around long, because sounds like they have quite a few people on staff that have quite a bit of experience, but I didn't feel comfortable with some of the things that I thought were missing. So that was the one thing. I don't know. Do you know what the Army Corps of Engineers QA QC is, Phil, and what it entails to get that?
I don't.
Because it just seemed like the engineer architect experience was missing, and some of the ways they chose to describe themselves are not bad things, but it doesn't make me feel comfortable that they can do the job.
Mhm.
In that way. One of the things that was mentioned in a couple different spots is dealing with hazardous materials investigation.
Yeah.
Are you aware of anything we should know about? I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
so
things can pop up, but
typically when they talk about hazardous material, they're talking about there's a space between the roof that could have insulation, from what I understand. And they will do core tests basically. And nobody's going to write that into their bid to say, hey, if you have it, we're responsible for it. They're never going to say that. You're going to pay the actual costs. So when if you choose to, talk to the board about one of these particular organizations, and they hire someone, when they write the next RFQ to hire an architect, we will have to do hazardous material testing. It's part of the requirement. And you kind of cross your fingers and go, I hope. But typically, there's something there. It's just a matter of how much it's, that's why you build it into some of your costs. But when they won't build it into their cost by any means. And neither will an architect. They won't. They'll say it's additional.
I was more curious as if you knew if there was anything there. Like some things some things you don't. Is this?
Yeah,
so
I don't know for sure, but that's why you have to test. We would be required to test. Nobody would touch that roof without the testing being done. We did it at when we did the upper roof at Center, we had it tested too, and I can't even remember if they had it there. This roof is significantly older at Hall.
It's an old building, so
yeah.
I know there's asbestos in there, but I don't know if it's in the roof. Bill, did they mention anything regarding the closing out of the project and warranties? Do they warranty or?
Yeah, all of these. So when they do the RFQ, and the state requires this, when you do the RFQ for construction, I believe you have to have a 20-year minimum roof. It's a requirement for grant reimbursement. And that's what it was when we did Center. So my assumption is that's not going to change. And this project manager is not the one that's going to, they're going to make sure you get it. They're not going to be the actual holder of that warranty. So our warranty at Center is through Firestone. And when we just installed those unit ventilators, the exhaust fans up at Center, and we had to cut the roof, we actually had Firestone, an approved Firestone vendor, do the cut so we wouldn't lose our warranty. And that's really, really important. So you have to maintain your warranty as part of the state reimbursement plan.
Now, the fees that we pay, you mentioned 15,000 would be for Collins, and 22 for another one, 13 for the other. What about mileage, travel expenses, miscellaneous expenses? Is that part of that, or is that an extra fee that they tack on later? It's like one of those hidden items. I think
Depends on the
Colin
group.
might have mentioned something about that. I don't know if the others.
So it's
I think-
standard practice that,
Yes, said their fees, I think, were separate or something.
yeah. So, when you look at Colliers, they did a good job of spelling it out. If you're looking for copies, you're going to pay for that, and that's standard. Usually you get a couple copies of plans for free. But if you say, hey, I want a copy for everybody, they're going to charge you for it. And they put in their hourly rates for their different people if there was something that we wanted them to do that was extra outside of this contract. And then they have their cap of $1,500 for mileage, phone, parking, et cetera, things like that. And really where the parking comes in and things like that is when we have to do, and honestly might have to do 3 or 4 trips to Hartford. And when we park at the parking garages there, they for the meetings for the grants, that they charge you that. And that's standard. We pay those fees. And so they capped it at 1,500, but you don't pay the 1,500, you pay the actual.
Yeah,
And they submit those to you.
gosh, yeah.
And that's standard.
I think Advocacy said that their fee is included in the estimate. I don't know how they do that, because
It could be, I'm not sure.
they're
Yeah,
low anyway.
It was. It said it was in the base fee.
Yeah.
And then CSG said there were none. So I don't know if they misunderstood or if they built it into their price. I mean, they are charging significantly more. So
And that's the point, right, Donna? So it's like, did you build it into your price, or, it's there somewhere for all of them, I'm sure.
yeah, otherwise they wouldn't be able to be in business.
Right.
I think the bigger question isn't so much which one of these to pick, because it sounds like everybody's landed at the same spot. If you had to pick one of them, I think the bigger question is, should we be picking one of them? And I don't think I can answer that question.
Yeah, and that's what will go to the board, right? So, you can make a recommendation to the board to say, look, we went through these proposals, didn't feel like we needed interviews. If there are additional questions and you wanted to share them with me, if you had one firm, you can choose for me to call one firm up if you wanted to say, look, we want clarification on these things. But then really it's up to this committee if you wanted to make a recommendation to the board, and then the board's got to figure out, is this right or not? Because this goes into the $1 million. If the board wants to consider solar, it makes sense to have a company like a project manager in this process to even consider, because I don't have expertise in that area, and it's that's going to be time consuming to get that information. But that's the question, Donna. Does the board want to have that considered as part of that $1 million? And that $1 million is an estimate. It was an estimate. So when we won't know the actual numbers for architecture and engineering until we put out those RFQs. If the cost of materials has gone up, it's gonna be there.
So before our next meeting, well, I guess I should stop a second. It sounds like Colliers is at the top of everybody's list. Am I misunderstanding that?
Herb, is Colliers your number one?
Well, I think so, yes.
And Michelle?
This
Yes,
is,
they would
yeah,
be my first pick.
but I think this committee just, I mean, we can agree on which one we want, but I think it
Correct.
has to go to the board, and the board has to make that decision.
Right.
Right.
We'll recommend, but they'll.
Right,
both
right.
decide.
All right, so just talking about Colliers, since if we're going to have someone, and the four of us think that if we're going to have someone, that they would be the best choice. Before our next meeting, I'd want you to reach out, Phil, to a couple of the, like they mentioned people, company, work they've done and contacts, like
Yep.
client contact. And maybe talk to a few, like,
Just check some references.
yeah, it's like South Windsor is
Yep.
close. I don't know if there's somebody that's close in size to our project. South Windsor is only because we're close to South Windsor, but maybe, check a couple of them and see were these people good to work with, or were they nightmares? If they were great to work with, that would, or if there was issues, it would be good to know ahead of time.
Yeah, and particularly about those two individuals that are being assigned to us, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
And that, like no one's perfect and everybody has a bad day every once in a while, but you can get a feel for whether they are glad they had them or they regretted having them. That would be one thing. The other thing is, there's talk about the solar panels. If you could reach out to our local fire department and find out what their policy is and how they would deal with this before we even find out more about solar panels, only because discussions that I've had, which were not super recent, indicated that there could be a real problem if there's a building that has a fire and there's solar panels on top of it. And preserving our children is more important than saving money on electric. And I'd also be curious, the theoretical life of the solar panels and the cost to dispose of them when their life ceases, because it can be quite expensive to get rid of them. When I looked into it several years ago, so a lot can change in several years, but I think if we know that ahead of time, we can have better discussions.
I can ask Donna. I'm just wondering, Herb, you might know, have some information on this. I'm just thinking I could probably find out who E.O. Smith has used to see, because they just put solar on. I can find out who they used and maybe get some of the specs on what they used, and then just talk to that company just as a
Yeah,
good
just
resource.
a general,
Yep.
not an in-depth, find the right one, but
Yep.
when I looked to having solar panels on my house, it was going to be a 15-year payoff. And in 15 years, I was going to have to pay some ridiculous amount of money to have them disposed of and replaced. And
Yeah.
I said, this doesn't make sense. And then when the fire department guy said that at that point in time, they just let the building burn, you put those two things together, and I'm not really pro solar panels on houses. So
Yeah, I don't know how much the superintendent over there would know. Sharon has only been there for
Yeah.
time, and
If I find out who the
I came on their board after the project was well underway. So
I can find that out. I mean, I still have Joe Krieger's number, who was the prior superintendent. I could talk to Sharon, even if I could just find out the company and get some of the details. That's easy. I can gather some of that information.
just to have a starting point in a conversation with up-to-date information versus my antiquated information.
No, Donna, it makes sense 100%. You know, how long's the payoff ballpark? They can ballpark those things. They have calculators
yeah.
figured out, you know?
And what, you know, if we had to dispose of them today, what would be the disposal cost today,
Yeah.
knowing that it could go up? It's probably not going to go down.
Yeah. Okay.
And even if you don't have those questions right away, Phil, because I think we can move ahead with this decision next week. But the solar conversation, we still have time before we have to make that decision. So we should all be looking and continue to collect information on that.
And
Okay.
listen, if you hire one of these companies, they may have the information we're asking about too.
That's part of the reason why we need to hire them, is so that they can do the research and help us make good decisions. So.
Yep.
But if you can check the references, I think that's
I
probably.
will for sure.
critical.
Yes.
Phil, the $1 million that you mentioned
Yep.
for this project, or CES and HMS, is that already in CIP, or is that a mortgage we'll have to provide? They have the cash for this, or?
It's already approved. It's already in there. The town already voted on it. It's a little over $1 million, with the expectation that they're going to get some of that money back, obviously, or a lot of that money back in reimbursement.
Yeah.
And our reimbursement rate actually went up. Not a lot, but it went up a little bit. So not a bad thing.
So we don't have to take out a long-term loan for this. So it's,
No. And I
But
don't know what the upfront cost. I don't know a lot about the solar project. If there's
solar panels, we probably have to do that.
There may need to be additional funds, because again, the way that they require it for the grant process is that you have to have the bank. You have to have enough money to do the whole project and then pay for it and then be reimbursed.
Right.
And so that's why the town approved the full $1 million, knowing that you're going to get, $600,000 back. So the solar panels would obviously, I would assume, add some money to that. I just don't know how much. And again, I know that they said that it was foolish not to do it at EO Smith, because they were getting so much money back. It was just a no-brainer for them. I just don't know what that financially looks like and what the math was. So I will find out that information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any questions that you want me to find out from Colliers? Are you're satisfied, or any of the other companies? Or are you just satisfied with, hey, check Colliers references, particularly on those two gentlemen that they named, and then just get some information about the solar?
Yeah.
That would be all that I would need.
Can you check with the Better Business Bureau too?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not expecting that you'll find anything, but at least that way. On Colliers, were the thermal reports included, or was that an extra service they could provide?
It's an extra service, and it's pretty standard. That a lot of places, the reason they do that, Donna, is when an architect wants to give you a cost to replace the roof, they want to know about how much material underneath the surface is bad. And so we've got some thermal images from a few years ago, I think. They're outdated, but it's not super expensive, and it's extremely helpful. And the reason why is, if you have to pull up the roof, it has to be a full removal or tear off. But when you get down to decking, if you have to replace decking, that's usually an additional fee. And so you want to know what they're going to charge for decking costs. And if you can make an assumption, look, we've got our thermal images, we're assuming all of that decking is going to be bad, we need to add this much onto our cost. It allows you to do that. Otherwise, you're guessing, and whatever's bad is you have to fix.
So based upon past roof leak experience, how much of the decking do you think is probably bad?
So there's a section I remember at Hall School, and we had this same thing at Center when we replaced that upper roof. We had a couple sections that they showed were soggy. And there's a section that was in the thermal imaging, I believe at Hall, that was on the front side of the building on that left, on the wing to the left, the west wing there. It was only on the front side though. It may have dried. It was at the time they did it. And because, you know, we've since sealed some of those things, it may have dried up, but if it's rotten, it still needs to be replaced. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Phil, on these project managers and directors, are they on site every day or is it once a week? They have a plan for that. Because the Pellman, the director, is the overseeing it, but I think they gave us the name of Pellman, I guess.
Yeah. Scott
Pellman. And just looking in the brochure, and he's done a lot of work locally. I think he did the town of Mansfield Elementary School and also Wyndham High School. Now, would they have enough time to devote to our project? Because some of these projects, Wyndham High School is a $115 million project, you know.
Yeah. And that's, Herb, when they said that they didn't have construction costs built in, that you could do some extra, you can actually, and so you can build that into your RFQ for your architect. If you wanted them to be on site once a week, you could pay them every day, but you're going to pay them, right? So if you wanted to build it into your RFQ to say, hey, what's in Colliers or whoever, if someone gets hired, they would recommend that. They would say, hey, here's a reasonable amount of time for someone to be on site. When you're just doing a roof, and I say just, a roof project is important, but there's certain parts that when they say at this point of the project, I want someone on site to make sure it's done right, and to code and to grant expectations, you pay for that.
Yeah.
And so it could be once a week, it could be twice a week, it could be every day, but whoever, if you hire someone, they're going to make a recommendation for you. It might not be someone from Colliers. It might be someone from the construction company that Colliers says that would be a good person. It could be someone from the architect. They can say that's a good person. So that's where their feedback is really important.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so this, we will bring this to the attention of the board. I guess we have a meeting tomorrow, don't we?
No, next week.
Thursday.
Or a week from tomorrow.
Correct.
And also Thursday, if you saw your email today, Herb, did you check your board email?
No, I haven't had an opportunity.
Okay. Well, just so that you and Donna, since you're both on the call right now, know, I went ahead and contacted some other people on the board about the mental health issue and scheduled a special meeting on Thursday at 7 p.m. So the agenda was posted today, and I sent an email to all of the other board members.
Thursday, the 7th?
This Thursday, the 7th at 7 p.m.
So you have been busy, Michelle, haven't you?
It has been a very busy day. Yes, it has.
Okay.
Do you want me to send anything to the board ahead of time? Costs? Do you want me to just do a quick breakdown to show the board that night? What would you like me to have ready for the board? Or do you just want to speak to it?
Well, I think we should have some information for them on all three candidates. And then we'll go from there, okay? Not a detailed.
Yeah, I can just pull together a one pager that has the generic stuff that was on my,
Something
what I
simple
spoke to. Cost.
to work off of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cost, experience, those types of things. I can put them on there.
That way they can think about it before they get to the meeting. They may have other questions that we haven't thought about.
Yep.
Or concerns.
I can do that.
So everyone is in agreement that when we go before the board in another week or so, that we will present this to them, and we are recommending Collins International. Is that okay? Good, okay. Okay, we'll do that. Anything else, Phil?
No, that was all I had. Time for dinner.
Good for you, okay.
Have a good night. Oh, do you have to adjourn?
Yep,
Okay, I guess we'll see everyone later then.
sounds good.
Okay.
Adjournment
Thanks
at
all. Good night.
6:48. Have a good night.